Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're doing JMA Friday for today's video, having a look at the next month across the British Isles with Japanese and CFS V2 models. This takes us well into March, go to the middle part of March with this update. So we're going to have a look at the Japanese first of all, then we'll have a look at the American CFS model, and we'll see what the consensus is from both of these long-range models for the month ahead. Before we get on with that, just say about the ads. This links right on the page. You have a browse, which is a click through the links. You're going to help us page website, and thanks very much doing that. There's also video ads both pages which own content. When you watch them, you can close them back up again, and it does help to pay for gas worthies. We'll start off with the JMA, and then we'll have a look at the CFS B2. So these are the 500 bit of our height anomalies, broken down into weekly periods. The first week period will take us from today, 17th of February, through to the 24th of February. This is the Northern Hemisphere view down, or the pole view down. So the pole is just here, British Isles is just there. Blue on these charts, and most 500 bit of our height anomaly, blue is extrapolating to low pressure, and the brighter colours, yellows, oranges, reds, they extrapolate to high pressure. So for the coming week, if I've got a ridge down to the southwest, we've got this deep trough up to the north, and we're doing something like that with the jet stream. So it looks as though for the south, anyway, there should be a lot of dry weather. The north will be more unsettled, and temperatures should be relatively mild, albeit later on it might start to get a little bit more unsettled, a little bit cooler. But generally, temperatures and precipitation should be doing okay. Week 2, which takes us from the 24th February through to the 3rd of March, looks much more unsettled. That trough is sinking south. The ridge is pushing to the south and to the west as well, so pulling away from us, and this trough is moving down through the country. That looks cooler and more unsettled. We're possibly bringing the air from a northwest southeast trajectory in the jet stream, so not only more unsettled but also cooler as well as we're going into the end of February and the start of March. That one looks a lot more changeable. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which is the 3rd through to the 17th of March. And it looks very unsettled, really. Low pressure is through the Atlantic, and it's through the UK as well. So just generally a very unsettled looking picture. There might be some sort of ridge down here around Spain. There could also be hinting, anyway, a little bit of ridging around Greenland. But overall, that just looks very unsettled, very changeable as we go through into March. Temperature's probably not all that far from average. Let's have a look at temperature and precipitation anomalies with the tropical and mid-latitude view. So we start off with week 1, again with 17th through to 24th of February. We've got the ridge down to the southwest. Low pressure is up here. The pole is up here, by the way. You can't see the pole, but we've just been looking at it, the polar view. So the British Isles is there in the top right-hand corner of the chart. And essentially, we know we've got this ridge down to the southwest. We've got low pressure up to the north. The jet stream doing something a bit like that, and again coming over here. So it looks relatively settled for the south, a little bit more unsettled than the north, probably fairly mild. Those temperature anomalies are coming out very significantly milder than average and warmer than average for the coming week, so really above average temperatures. And the precipitation looks a little bit wetter than average for Scotland, but drier than average for England and Wales. A proper north-south split in the week ahead. Week 2 looked much more changeable, bringing that low pressure through the country. The ridge is pulling out into the centre of the Atlantic, doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. You expect this to be a cooler week. Actually, temperature anomalies are holding up quite well. They're holding up a little bit milder than average, especially so for the south. The precipitation anomaly turns wetter than average for all parts of the country in that week 2 period. So it does look like, as we go through to the end of February and into the start of March, it turns significantly more unsettled. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, when it just looks very changeable, really. Low pressure is through the Atlantic and into the UK and extending to many parts of Europe as well. So this one, again, is coming out slightly milder than average with the temperatures, although clearly from week 1 to weeks 3 and 4, there is a reduction in the temperature anomaly. It's going from significantly milder than average to no better than a little bit above average. So clearly the temperature is coming down, but even so, it's still a little bit above average there, even through to weeks 3 and 4. The main thing is the precipitation. This looks like a very unsettled signal for March. Could be some high rainfall totals coming through there, which is quite unusual because March is actually one of the drier months of the year. So quite unusual to get significantly wet conditions in March, but that's what the model is showing, particularly for the first half of March. As for JMA, let's have a look at CFS V2. And these are 500 millibar heights, again broken down into weekly periods. The first week period takes us from the 17th through to the 23rd of February. We've got the ridge down to the south and the southwest. We've got the trough up to the northeast, and we're doing something like that with the flow. Very similar, really, to what the JMA is doing. We're probably pulling up some very mild air from the southwest, so it looks mostly dry, very mild. Most of the settled conditions will be in the north. We move through to week 2, which is the 24th of February through to the 2nd of March. This is when the JMA turning a little bit more unsettled. CFS is doing that to some degree, but I don't think it's doing it quite as much, actually, as the JMA. So for southern areas, still a lot of dry weather. For the north, yes, it is a little bit more unsettled and changeable then, with the flow and the jet stream going through rather like that. And then we move through to week 3, which is the 3rd through to the 9th of March. And this one is showing a change coming through then. So I'll just highlight that. It's the 3rd through to 9th of March. So we've got a bit of a trough setting up over Scandinavia. We've got the ridge pulling out to the north and to the west of the country. So this looks cooler, I would have thought, and probably more changeable as well, with the jet stream potentially doing something a little bit like that. So I think that one is turning more unsettled very gradually into the start of March, probably turning a little bit cooler as well. And then finally we go through to week 4, which takes us from the 10th through to the 16th of March. We've got a deep trough in over Scandinavia, also extending through the UK and the Atlantic. We have got hints of high pressure around Greenland and pulling back towards the North Pole. So again, I think this one is much more changeable, and it's probably cooler, maybe even colder, with the flow potentially going something a little bit like that. So it could be Atlantic based air still, but that is quite extensive blocking that we have going on up here. Quite a lot of high pressure, so that would be forcing cold air into this trough, and that's very close to turning things significantly colder there through that middle period of March. Temperature anomalies look like this. The coming week is very significantly milder than average. Most parts of Europe the same. So JMA and CFS in agreement in a very mild week coming up, if not quite warm. Week 2 is looking like this again, significantly above average temperature anomalies there. Week 3 is still above average with the temperature anomalies, although to a slightly lesser degree, but still a very mild week. And then week 4, which I thought could be bringing some colder air in, still seeing milder than average temperatures, albeit those anomalies are reducing on a week-by-week basis. So it's the same idea as what the JMA is doing, really. They are seeing a cooling trend into March, but only from a very warm anomaly for the first week down to something just a little bit above average for week 3 and 4. So they're certainly not seeing anything desperately cold coming up through to the middle of March, that's for sure. The precipitation anomaly for next week looks very significantly drier than average with CFS V2, as does week 2 as well. Week 3 precipitation anomaly is closer to average, and then week 4, which you would have thought is going to be a bit wetter than average given the pattern, that's just coming out close to average. As we usually see with these precipitation anomalies, the model does lose the signal as we go further and further out. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It certainly looks as though we're starting off with some very warm weather for the time of year, and trending things a little bit cooler into March. I think the main thing for March, rather than the temperature, is probably that it's turning the models are right, probably turning more unsettled. As I say, March tends to be one of our drier months of the year, so to see the models wanting to turn things increasingly unsettled into March is fairly unusual and not really typical of what you would expect for March. So maybe a fairly wet and unsettled March after a really dry winter, which will be quite unusual. Temperatures starting off warm, gradually reducing on a week-by-week basis, but certainly nothing cold showing up on these charts. However, that CFS week 4 chart for the middle part of March does have fairly extensive blocking around Greenland, and won't take that much of an adjustment to bring some cold air down across the west of Europe with that. So the hints might be there of something significantly colder for the middle of March, but on its own terms, CFS isn't really showing that at this stage. That's JMA Friday for this week. We'll do it all again next week, of course, as we always do. It'll probably look a little bit different next week because these are highly experimental charts. We're pushing the envelope with these long-range updates. So it's all a bit of fun, really. It's a snapshot of what the models are showing, but never take any long-range forecasts, and particularly any long-range model-based forecasts particularly seriously. And talking of just for fun, we're going to be doing the CFS 6 months look ahead tomorrow evening at Gazmovitz. So that really is just for fun because we're going at 6 months with the long-range CFS model. Also tomorrow we've got the weekend forecast, so come back for all of that tomorrow. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.